Howdy folks. Today I want to talk to you about Scotch. My go-to mixing Scotch for a while now has been Monkey Shoulder. It's affordable, it's pretty good, and I've been perfectly happy with it so far. But this bottle is just about running out, so I thought it'd be a good time to re-examine my choices. Maybe see if there's another bottle that will work better. I got a couple possible replacements here. We'll taste them on their own and see how they compare. Test drive it in a rusty nail. Let's go. Before we get into the tasting portion of this, I thought I would just talk a little bit about Scotch categories, because all three of these bottles actually fit into the same category. There are basically 5 categories of Scotch, but only 3 that you really need to worry about. Blended Scotch is the most popular version by far, and the one you've heard of probably is single malt Scotch. That's the fancy stuff. And single malt means that it's a single producer, so it's made at a single distillery, and it's made from 100% malted barley, which they just call malt whiskey in Scotland. You don't have to make Scotch from 100% malt. You can make it from other grains, and when you do that, it's called grain whiskey. Now, they make a lot of grain whiskey in Scotland. It's typically made in a column still, which is a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper to make, and most of that stuff will go into blends, which is one of the reasons blended Scotch is a lot less expensive. Now, if you bottle a grain whiskey that you've made in your single distillery, you can have what I guess is the 3rd category, which is single grain whiskey, which is sort of the flip side of single malt whiskey. Now, if you take a bunch of grain whiskeys from single distilleries and blend those together, you'll get blended grain. And if you blend a bunch of single malt scotches from different distilleries together and bottle that, you'll have blended malt whiskey, which is what we're going to taste today. Now, just for the record, single grain whiskey is a thing, but it isn't a very big category. A blended grain is almost not a thing at all. And blended malt is something that's sort of gotten a little bit more popular in the last, 20 years or so. Blended Scotch, of course, you blend single grains, single malts from various different sources all together to make your blend. So like Dewar's is a blended Scotch, for example. Okay, so now we know we're talking about blended malts here today. Let's go ahead and meet our competitors. Boing. First up is my old standby, Monkey Shoulder. Monkey Shoulder is owned by William Grant. That's a real old company that owns several different Scotch distilleries. They own Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Kinnevie, and a couple other ones. Monkey Shoulder used to be made of Glenfiddich, Balvenie, and Kinnevie, but after it got to America in 2012, it got really popular, and there was a shortage, and so they've reformulated what Monkey Shoulder's made of, and they're not saying which distillers it comes from, but almost certainly is Glenfiddich and Balvenie at a minimum. Monkey Shoulder cost me $35 a bottle, but you can get it in a gallon bottle for only $60. Boing. Next competitor is called Naked Malt. It's owned by a company called Edrington, which is a Scottish company. They came out with Naked Malt in 2017. Edrington owns Macallan, Highland Park, and Glenrothes, and that's what goes into the Naked Malt. Now, when it first came out in 2017, it was called Naked Grouse, so you might know it by that name, because Edrington also owns the brand Famous Grouse, which is a pretty popular blended Scotch. Naked Malt costs $33 a bottle, so just a little bit cheaper than Monkey Shoulder. Boing. Now, just for fun, I thought I would throw in a slightly more expensive, a slightly nicer bottle, so I got this Scallywag. Scallywag is a blend made by Douglas Lang. They make a few different blended malts, including some you might have seen like Big Pete, which is a blend of peated whiskeys. And they have another one called Timorous Beastie and another called Rock Island. These are sort of regional blends that they like to do. I picked Scallywag because it's a Speyside blend, and the other ones I've got here are mostly Speyside as well. It's a blend that has Mortlach, Macallan, Dalwhinnie, Inchgower, and Glenrothes. So the Scallywag actually shares 2 of the single malts from the Naked Malt, so I'm kind of expecting those to have some similarities. Boing. All right, so let's get on and taste these. I'm sort of expecting the Naked Malt and the Scallywag to be kind of similar, the Monkey Shoulder to be probably a little lighter, as like Macallan is usually like thought of as sort of a very heavy Scotch. All right, let's start with Monkey Shoulder. I've been using this a lot in cocktails, but I don't really sip it on its own very often. Yeah. I mean, Scotch, you get a lot of those cereal grains, but this doesn't. This has a very sort of light feel. So yeah, this is very light. It's like easy to drink. Doesn't really blow you away with tons of flavor, but it's definitely got a cereal maltiness to it, almost like eating a biscuit with some sort of light apple, clove sort of notes to it. Sort of a light burn at the back palate, but not super complex. Actually, it mixes really well. I've been mixing with it for a long time, as I said, and it's a perfectly good mixer. All right, let's try this Naked Malt. It's all a bit darker in color to the Monkey Shoulder. It is aged in sherry casks. I believe after they blend it, they'll age it in sherry casks, so that's not too surprising that it has a little bit darker color. It's got a much more complicated nose, sort of brown sugar, a little bit chocolatey. Where the Monkey Shoulder is kind of light and airy, this is much more, a lot more of those sort of caramel, dark fruit kind of flavors. Yeah, pretty good. I'd say the Naked Malt may be a little nicer to sip on, although I'm not really going to sip on either one of them. Let's move on to the Scallywag. Now at $54 a bottle, you're probably not going to put this in all your cocktails, but maybe for something very special you might use it. Yeah, this has got a much more complex nose. Get a little bit of like a chocolate note to it, sort of a cocoa mocha kind of a flavor. Okay, so this is 46%, which is a little higher than the others, but it doesn't really taste higher. Yeah, it's got a really nice lingering sort of chocolate aftertaste. Lots of like dark fruits, a little bit of that sherry note to it as well. I mean, that's delicious. I'll probably mostly sip it. Maybe on some ice would be really good. Maybe if I want to make a super special cocktail, I'll use the Scallywag as like a special treat. I really like that. I think if you're looking for just like a not too expensive but slightly nicer thing to use in a cocktail or just to have around the house to drink, Scallywag is pretty good. Alright, so let's try these out in a cocktail. I thought we would keep it super simple and just do a rusty nail. Just Scotch and Drambuie with a dash of bitters. I'll just build it in the glass. I like them because they're kind of sweet and I'll be able to taste the Scotch. So let's go. All right, we did it. We made our rusty nails. Let's go ahead and give them a try. We're gonna start with the Monkey Shoulder, I think. They will stand by. With rusty nails, you get a lot of honey flavor from the Drambuie. But this is a sort of, it's a lighter version of this. Monkey Shoulder, Monkey Shoulder's good. Let's try the Naked Malt next. This will be the real contest here. Again, lots of honey sweetness. But the Naked Malt's sort of richer. It's more chocolatey. It's smooth is not a good word, but it's a little richer, I think. I'm liking Naked Malt. It makes a nicer rusty nail, I think. And now for fun, let's try our Scallywag. I mean, definitely more complex. Again, another step richer. It's got some really nice late palate flavor, some nice aftertastes that are not really present in the other two. Obviously, Scallywag is the nicest of these rusty nails, but you're not really gonna spend $50 on a bottle for a rusty nail. But Scallywag is a very nice sipper. Okay, conclusions. I think Monkey Shoulder and Naked Malt are both perfectly good options for your home bar. Monkey Shoulder's a little bit lighter, a little bit more in the front of the palate, and Naked Malt a little bit richer, a little bit darker, and lingers a little bit more in the back of the palate. So it might just depend on which drink you're making as to which one you choose. They're a comparable price, they're the same proof, they're both blended malts. So this test, I guess, is inconclusive. I'm gonna stick with the Naked Malt for now until that bottle runs out, and then maybe I'll assess again. But if you are looking for sort of a fun, slightly nicer one that you could also sip, you could do a lot worse than trying this Scallywag. All right, go ahead and leave a comment below with your favorite Scotch drinks. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.